Are the hydraulics on your touch control hydraulic system leaking? This one certainly is. You can see that there's lots of hydraulic oil on the mower deck. Additionally, the hydraulics do not work on this tractor. So we're going to fix that. In this video, I'll walk you through all of the steps to repairing the touch control hydraulics and also rebuilding the hydraulic pump. Now today I'm working on a Farmall Cub, but these techniques will apply to any tractor that is equipped with the touch control hydraulics. That would be the C and Super C, 100, 140, 200, 240, and so many more models that were equipped with the touch control hydraulics. Now of course those tractors would be bigger, the Cub is the smallest system, but I think if you're working on one of those other models, you'll definitely gain some insight from making those repairs yourself. So to begin, we need to take the hood off of the tractor. The very first thing whenever you work on a tractor like this would be to remove the ground battery cable, which I've already done. There's a lot of bolts involved in taking the hood off. Don't forget about the ones that are up on your radiator, and then you can lift it off. The gas tank is coming off with the hood, so I have turned off the fuel at the sediment bowl, and also there's the fuel line that you'll want to disconnect, and then you can take your hood off. You're going to pull the muffler off of the tractor. There's the clamp up by the manifold and also one in the back. Next we'll take this air tube off, which I already have loosened, so it'll just wiggle right down for us. And then we can take the lines off of the hydraulic pump here. You'll see that there's two bolts that hold the lines on, and then there's other bolts that hold the pump actually into the tractor. Right now we're just going to take the lines off. Oops, there we go. And then this should loosen up a little bit. There you go. I have a pan underneath there, perfect. That's going to catch the hydraulic oil that runs out. Now we're going to move up here and take these three bolts off next. Once these three bolts come, then the lines will come off of the tractor. You can see there's a little bit of oil dripping out. I think probably most of the hydraulic oil already dripped out on its own since the tractor was leaking so bad. Okay. Oops, this one still needs a little bit more. There we go. Oops, I need a pan up here too. Okay, and now these lines will come right out. We'll take this cotter key out so that we can get this helper spring off. You'll notice that we did move this nut so that the tension could be loosened. Be sure to wear safety glasses and work carefully, and then it will pop right off for you and be loose. Then with that key out, we're just going to set this down. The next things that we want to remove would be the choke and the throttle cables, also this cable that controls the hydraulics. We're going to loosen up those things so that we can get to this unit here. We're going to try to leave the wiring harness on the tractor. I think it's loose enough that we can just set it aside and it will be out of our way. I have my bolts removed at the bottom of the touch control unit here. There's three that will come off. This one's going to just be loosened and come off with the unit. You'll see that I have my rod here that's going to come with the unit. Be careful not to bend it as you take it off. Also, the rock shaft you can see is still intact. So with all of those things free, we're ready to lift it off of the tractor. It's heavy, so I'm going to get some help. Looks like we got two more to go. Oh boy, let me get a rag here. Got one more. Got one more bolt at the bottom. Gonna need a pan too. Okay. I'm gonna take this off the rest of the way. And I still have one more bolt, so I'm gonna get my impact and try to release that last bolt, and probably more will come out. There we go. Now we'll try to remove the rock shaft from the touch control hydraulic unit. You'll see that there's a pin here that holds the rock shaft in. There was a cotter pin on the end of here which we removed. Then there's this nut which is 3/4 inch which you'll need to turn and loosen up, and it will drive this whole pin out in this direction. There is a screw head on the end of this, but I couldn't hold the screwdriver and turn the 3/4 inch wrench to move this nut. So I just put these locking pliers on there, and you may need to do the same. And then that will just pull right out. I'm gonna let that drop down. Next, I'll just use the impact here and remove these 4 bolts along here. There we go. You'll see that that will come off like so. And then we'll do it over here. Oops. There we go. Okay. We're gonna take this cylinder out, just gonna pound it out the other end. Here it comes. Now there should have been a boot down in here which is missing, so when we rebuild we'll definitely put the boot back in, and we'll also replace the O-rings there too. Now set this down and then turn it around so you can see the other side. And we'll try to take the filter out. The filter may come out in pieces, which is okay because we have a new one to put in. There we go. And it feels like that's all of it contained right in there. These parts that are in the back end here out like so. This one will probably just pull out gently. You see there's an O-ring on the end of there. Got this little one with the spring on it. Oops, only the spring came. And maybe if I reattach the spring, it will come with it. There we go. Okay. And that part's gonna stay in there for right now. Then this one down here will come out from the other end. I'm just gonna really gently move this down with the lever. And if you just tilt it down a little bit, it should come out pretty easily. There we go, just like this. There's that one. We have a few more pieces that we want to get out. Down here there's a little piece of the filter stuck in there, which isn't supposed to be there. Also there's a small filter on the end of this screw, which we can pull out. Wow, there you go. You can see all the little pieces on there that have been filtered out through the years. We'll use some snap ring pliers to get this one out. There we go. It's got the spring on the end there, which you'll see. If that doesn't come out with it, you'll need to fish that out separately. And I think there's still, yep, there's a piece of plastic in there, and there should have been a spring behind it. Use a magnet, see if we can get the spring out. I don't feel it. Maybe it's missing. Okay, so I'm going to get all of those pieces out, anything else that you see that's in there, and clean it up. This part will pull out like so. You can see that. I think there's more in there. Just going to put a magnet in there and see if it'll come out. There we go. There's the last piece in there. Yep, that's the end of it. Okay, so you'll want to get all of that assembly out. I'm going to put this back in there so we remember how it goes. Okay, I'm going to set that aside, and then I'll roll this unit over to the side and you can see the number. That would be how you could identify if you have an early or a late touch control hydraulic pump, would be this number right here. So if you ever want to identify that, that's how you do so. I'm going to set this down like so and remove all of these bolts to take this plate off of the bottom. Go. Looks like they have a washer behind them too. Here's our last one, and come off just like that. And you've got the gasket there as well. There are 2 O-rings in here which you'll want to pick out so that we can replace them and make sure that we'll be able to get a really good seal here. So I'm just going to use this pick, and There's one in front and one back behind it. Oops. Here it comes. There we go. There's the one, and then get the one on the next level lower too. Now we're ready to replace with the new O-rings. I did put some petroleum jelly on here to help it slide in a little easier as the manual suggested. So I'm going to slide that down into the groove there. And there we go. Okay, that one's in. Then the second one, when you feel down in this hole, there's the two spots where the O-rings go, and there's a groove in the middle. So make sure that you get your O-ring in the right, the deeper groove for the O-ring. I'm going to squeeze this in here. There we go. Got it started, and we'll wrap it around in there. You want to clean out your ports. I'm using carb cleaner here in these ports. You take the plug out, and then I'm going to dry it out. Dry it out with a blow-off nozzle there. You want to do that on all three of your ports, which I've already done. So then I'm going to put my last plug in here and get that started, and then tighten it up with the Allen wrench. Oops. There we go. Got it started. And then I'm going to tighten it the rest of the way. Then we'll be ready to put our new gasket and cover on the bottom. You want to make sure that this is very cleaned out, the whole entire compartment, before you put your cover back on. You can use carb cleaner, and then also I would recommend putting it in a parts washer just so it's really, really clean before you reassemble. I'm going to get that tight, like so. Then I have a new gasket to put on, which is directional, and that's the right direction. And then we'll put our cover on. Remember, we have washers as well as our bolt for the bottom, which will go all the way around and tighten those up with the impact. There's more O-rings here on your piston and rod. You definitely will see this O-ring on the outside, which you'll want to just pull off and put a new replacement O-ring on there. But there's also an additional O-ring inside here, which would be easy to overlook, but it's definitely one that you want to replace. You'll see that there's a castle nut here on the top. I loosened up the castle nut and then left it on there so that I can pound it down and loosen it up while still protecting the threads. You want to clamp it on a vise down here on the bottom, definitely not on this shaft. You don't want to squeeze there and do any damage to the shaft. So I'm going to set this in the vise here, and I'll tighten it up. Oops. There we go. And then I'm going to tap it down, loosen that up a little bit. You can see it's moving down. So now I'm going to take the castle nut off the rest of the way. There we go. And hopefully that will just pull off. There we go. Okay, I'm going to loosen it up from the vise and pull it out the rest of the way. I'm going to set this part aside. Maybe I'll set it down on the ground. Okay, here you can see that the rubber boot is squished up in there. Look how rusty that is. Definitely we'll want to clean this up. We want to get it really, really clean before we put it back together. And you can see that the O-ring is right there that you'll want to replace as well. I have this assembly ready to go back into the unit. You'll see down here that I have my boot in there. You want to slide it over and slide it carefully. I use pliers and wrecked once. This is my second boot that we put on here. And it will slide over, just stick with it. I also have some petroleum jelly on the outside of the shaft here and down here by the O-ring. And now it's ready to go into the unit. I'm going to push it by hand as far as I can, and then just gently pound it the rest of the way. We're hung up on that O-ring a little bit, and in it goes. Before I put the back end on, I want to show you these plastic valves. Make sure that you inspect yours and see that they aren't melted or broken off at all before you reuse them. If they are broken, of course, buy that replacement part. There's a spring that goes on the end as well, which is right there. You also want to put a new filter in your unit here. Ours was pretty disintegrated. It'll drop right in, and that part is available from Steiner Tractor Parts, just like the O-ring kit. Now we have a new filter, And I want to show you that I have this back cover really cleaned up, as well as this part. You want to make sure that all the remains of the old gasket are gone before you put this back on. I'm going to set my gasket on here and then put it on. Now these bolts are different lengths, so you'll want to lay them out. The longest one will go down here where your casting is the thickest, and then there's two that are slightly shorter that go here, and then all of these are the same length. I have my rock shaft clamped onto the unit, which you can see. I'll walk you through the steps here. First, we held the rock shaft up and got these clamps situated and just started the bolt so that it would hold it into place while we worked up here. You'll see that there's this screwdriver slot bolt that we put through here. We did get hung up a little bit on this rod, but we just adjusted it until it would go through. Then we have this 3/4 inch nut that we have tightened up, and on the end here we did put a new cotter pin on the end so that that's all situated there. Then we went back down and tightened these up. When we started them, we did put some grease behind there just so that we aren't starting that dry. And then our rock shaft assembly is all complete onto the unit. Now we're ready to put the unit on the tractor. Before I drop this on the tractor, I just want to point out that this lever is operating freely between these two notches. Make sure that yours is as well. Now I'm going to complete the process of our repair today by taking off this pump. I'm not going to rebuild the pump, I'm just going to put a new seal kit in it. You'll see that it does need to be pried off at this back portion. Use a little screwdriver to get in there. There we go. You'll see the gear on the end and that little gasket that's coming with it. Now we'll take it and replace some seals. You'll notice a number here that's cast into your pump. You'll want to make sure that your number falls within the sequence for the seal kit that you purchase. Here's where you'll find that number. Now I'm going to remove these 4 bolts and then we will pull this apart. This seal that's on the end here by the gear is probably the most important, or the one that goes bad most often. So it will let hydraulic oil through and into the engine. That's why we would recommend using 30 weight oil as your hydraulic oil, so that if this seal does leak, you don't get hydraulic oil into your engine, which would contaminate and eventually spoil the engine. So that's the importance there. We're going to replace this seal. I'm just going to pull this apart very gently, and then we'll get started. We'll take the nut off here, and then there's a small lock washer that you'll see that comes off with the gear. Then there's a key here, and then right behind here, this is where it leaks. That's where the O-ring seal is, which we need to replace. Now we can push this gear out the other side, and then you can see that the O-ring is inside there. I'm just going to pick it out like so. I think I'm going to pick the old O-ring out. There we go. Okay. And then I'm going to put my new one in. The new one's this brown color. Here we go. I'm going to just get a little bit of petroleum jelly to put on there first. And slide it in that groove. Just want to be really gentle with it and be really careful with the pick so that you don't damage the O-ring. Putting it back in. And push it in right there. And it's in. There we go. On this side of the pump, you can just pull this gear out, nothing holds it in, and then you can pull these brass pieces out just to inspect the aluminum housing underneath there and make sure that there's no damage before you put it all back together. You're going to get this wiggled out like so, and then we'll take off the other one. You can just do some inspection there, and then you can put them back in. Next, I want to show you this seal up here. This will just pick out pretty easily, but the new one comes in a round shape like this. So you just have to bend it around to be in the oval. It'll fit in there. You can use a little bit of petroleum jelly if you need it, but I think it will slide in pretty easily for you. We'll drop these back in here and reassemble it. We'll take these brass pieces out. When you take this apart, pay special attention to how you take it apart so that you can easily get it back together. So we got both of those out, and there's a little rubber stopper as well. It fell down. We'll get this out of the way. Here you can see there's an O-ring and a backer, which would have been down in the hole like that. So we'll take the O-ring and the backer out. Again, there's the O-ring and a backer over here. This is that little rubber piece I was talking about earlier. You want to inspect your housing, and then you can reassemble with new O-rings and backers. In your kit, you'll get 2 different sizes of O-rings. There's this thick size, and there's also a thin size like this. Just match whatever you took out and put your pump back together with the same size O-rings is what came originally. Here we have a backer and an O-ring there. Make sure those are in there well. And then reassemble. I'm going to set that down. Here we have a new rubber stopper, which I'm going to put between here and kind of pinch it here and drop it in both of these all together, just like that. This side needs to be snapped down a little bit further. Looks like my little rubber piece is off to the side. There, it fell down. Okay, let's try that again. I'm going to pull this brass off, put my rubber in here, and pinch it with the other piece, and drop it down. Again, I went a little cockeyed. Okay. Set that in there. Maybe I'll put a little tiny bit of Vaseline to help hold it. Okay. Perfect on that side. Perfect. Okay. Now you can see that it's all snapped together like that. Now at this point we can reassemble. We've got my small washer here and my nut. And I don't know what I did with my bolt. Here it is. Okay. Put this down in here. It might go a little bit hard because we got that new O-ring, so I'll just push it in good. Okay. Then I have a key, which is right here. You can see the key drop on there. Then we'll put our gear on, lining up that key. Just a little bit there. There we go. Okay. Got our washer to put back on, and then we'll tighten up the nut. Now we can assemble our 2 halves together, like so. Just going to wiggle this gear a little bit. There we go. Okay, that'll be ready to go. The last thing we want to do is replace both of these seals back here. Just going to use a O-ring pick to get the O-rings out and replace them. There we go. Like that. Now we can put it back on the tractor. You can see that I put both of my bolts that hold the 2 parts of the pump together in, and they're diagonal from each other. Now I can put my gasket on, and that's directional. So I'm going to slide my gasket over there, hold that there, then slip both of my bolts through. There we go. We're ready to drop it in the tractor. Now, as I assembled, I did use petroleum jelly, and you'd want to do the same so that you don't put it together dry. There we go. It slides up. We'll get these started by hand and then tighten them up the rest of the way. Those hydraulics are working well. You can see the mower deck goes up and down. Tractor hasn't worked like that in many, many years. So our fix was a success. I hope that the steps that we outlined in this video are helpful to you when you make the repair on your own tractor. If you need other hints and tips for other repairs, you can check out our TV page. It's Steiner Tractor TV.